Imagine a child, no older than your own, sitting by a door, eyes filled with hope, waiting for a promise to be kept. A father, caught in the chaos of a war-torn world, had promised to return by sunset. As the hours stretch into the night, the child waits, clinging to that one sacred word, tomorrow. This story is not just about a father and son. It is about the power of hope, the fragility of promises, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. In this moment, we reflect on the universal struggle for love, safety, and peace. The bond between a father and his son is one of the most profound relationships a person can experience. It is rooted in trust, love, and the unwavering commitment of a father to care for and protect his child. This relationship goes beyond biological ties. It is built on shared experiences, promises made, and the emotional security a father provides. In many cultures, a father's role is seen as the protector, the provider, and the guiding figure who shapes the early years of a child's life. This bond becomes a source of strength for both father and son, with the child often looking up to the father as a symbol of safety and stability. A promise made by a father to his son is not just a casual statement. It represents a commitment to that child's well-being and happiness. It signifies a sense of reliability and security that the child can hold on to, even when the world around them is uncertain or chaotic. The promise to return home by sunset, for example, is more than just an expectation. It is a symbol of the father's dedication to being there for his child, no matter the circumstances. For a son, a father's promise is a lifeline. It is a reassurance that even in the face of challenges, there is a constant someone who will always come back, who will always keep their word. The child's belief in that promise is a reflection of their deep trust in the father's love and integrity. This bond is a powerful source of emotional stability for the child, making it all the more heartbreaking when that promise is unfulfilled, as it disrupts the very foundation of trust that the father-son relationship is built upon. The conflict in Gaza is one of the most enduring and complex crises in modern history. It has caused immense human suffering, particularly for civilians caught in the crossfire. Gaza, a small coastal strip of land, has been a focal point of political and territorial disputes for decades, with tensions between Israel and Palestinian groups leading to cycles of violence. The ongoing conflict has led to widespread displacement, economic hardship, and the destruction of infrastructure, leaving families in constant uncertainty. For the people living in Gaza, every day is a struggle for survival. The region is densely populated, and the harsh realities of war are felt in every corner of daily life. Families face constant fear, not knowing if they will be safe from bombings or gunfire. Amidst this violence, children are often the most vulnerable. Their lives are marked by a sense of instability, with schools being destroyed, homes reduced to rubble, and parents lost to the violence. In such a context, the promise of a father returning home becomes even more significant. It is not just a promise of safety, but a symbol of normalcy in a world turned upside down by conflict. The constant threats and the unpredictability of life in Gaza mean that any promise of return could be shattered at any moment. The challenges of living in a war zone create an atmosphere of fear and loss that affects everyone, especially the youngest, who are left to grapple with the absence of their loved ones. For a child in Gaza, waiting for a parent to come home is an act of hope amidst overwhelming despair. The conflict has robbed them of the ability to live without fear, making any moment of peace, like a father's promise to return, an emotional anchor in their turbulent lives. Hope is one of the most powerful forces in the human spirit, especially in times of adversity. It is a sustaining force that allows individuals to endure difficult circumstances, often when the future seems uncertain and grim. For a child waiting for a father to return in the midst of conflict, hope becomes their most vital companion. It is the thread that keeps them going when the hours stretch into the night, when uncertainty surrounds them, and when every sign suggests that the promise may never be fulfilled. Hope is not merely wishful thinking. It is an active state of mind, a conscious decision to believe in the possibility of a better outcome, despite overwhelming odds. For children in conflict zones, hope often takes on a particularly poignant meaning. It is what allows them to continue waiting at the doorstep, eyes scanning the horizon for a father who may not come back. Hope is what makes them cling to the belief that tomorrow might be different, that tomorrow might bring them back the safety, love, and reassurance they crave. In war zones where devastation and loss are daily experiences, hope acts as a psychological shield, protecting the soul from complete despair. For a child, the belief that their father will return represents not just a personal wish, but a desire for the restoration of normalcy, a world where parents return home at the end of the day, where safety is guaranteed, and where love and security are constants. Even in the darkest hours, hope remains a source of strength, offering a way for the child to continue enduring. It keeps them alive to the possibility that something better might come, even when all evidence points to the contrary. Childhood is a time defined by innocence, an innocence that is untouched by the harsh realities of the world. It is a period of life where children trust that the world will fulfill its promises and that safety and love are constants. For children in conflict zones like Gaza, this innocence is often tested, but it remains an essential part of their identity, even in the face of unimaginable challenges. A child's ability to believe in a simple promise, such as their father's return by sunset, is a reflection of this innocence. They do not question the complexity of the world or the dangers that may exist. Instead, they focus on the pure hope that the people they love will keep their word. For them, waiting for their father to return is an act of simple belief, an expression of their trust in him, untainted by the uncertainty of the adult world. This innocence makes their suffering all the more heartbreaking. The child does not fully understand the depth of the conflict or the reasons why their father may not return, but they still wait, filled with hope. They believe that the world is a place where promises are kept, where love is unwavering, and where their father, despite the chaos around them, will walk through that door at the end of the day. In conflict zones, the innocence of childhood stands in stark contrast to the destruction surrounding them. While adults are often forced to grapple with the reality of violence and loss, children maintain an emotional purity that allows them to hold on to dreams of safety and familial reunion. The loss of this innocence as children witness the realities of war can be one of the most tragic consequences of conflict, robbing them of the simple belief that everything will be okay. A promise is a powerful thing, especially when it comes from a parent. For a child, a promise made by a father is more than just a statement. It is a sacred bond, a word that creates a sense of security and trust. When a father promises to return by sunset, it is not just a casual statement. It is a commitment that the child relies on. This promise becomes a symbol of safety, love, and reassurance in an unpredictable world. For a child, promises are often the foundation of their understanding of the world around them. They are one of the few things that remain constant amidst the uncertainty that may plague their lives. However, in conflict zones like Gaza, the ability to fulfill promises is often disrupted by the unpredictability and violence of war. The promise made by a father to return home becomes fragile, subject to forces beyond anyone's control. Military operations, airstrikes, and the ongoing nature of the conflict often prevent these promises from being kept. The father, despite his best intentions, may never be able to return to his child. This broken promise not only shatters the child's expectation, but also leaves behind a deep emotional wound. For the child waiting at the doorstep, the promise represents the last thread of stability in a world torn apart by conflict. When that promise is broken, it feels like a betrayal, a violation of trust that goes beyond the physical absence of the father. The child is left with unanswered questions, a deep sense of loss, and a growing awareness of the instability surrounding them. The emotional impact of a broken promise in such a context can linger long after the child has given up waiting, leaving an indelible mark on their heart and mind. Children living in conflict zones like Gaza face a psychological toll that is profound and long-lasting. The constant exposure to violence, loss, and instability can have a deep and lasting impact on their emotional and mental well-being. For a child waiting for their father to return, the experience is not just about missing a loved one. It's about the emotional strain of uncertainty, fear, and confusion that stems from living in a war-torn environment. The psychological impact of war on children is multifaceted. The loss of a parent, whether permanent or temporary, can cause feelings of abandonment, trauma, and emotional distress. For a child who has been promised their father's return, the prolonged absence can lead to a sense of helplessness and confusion. The child may not fully understand the reasons for the absence, leaving them to wonder why the world has shifted so dramatically. The emotional anguish of waiting, the fear that the promise may not be kept, and the trauma of seeing their community in turmoil contribute to a profound sense of insecurity. Children in such environments also face the loss of a sense of safety. In normal circumstances, children expect to be protected by their parents and caregivers, but in conflict zones, that protection is often compromised. The fear of airstrikes, bombings, and armed conflict creates an atmosphere of constant anxiety. This sense of danger, combined with the psychological weight of waiting for a parent who may never return, can lead to feelings of isolation, depression, and an inability to trust the world around them. Moreover, the trauma of witnessing violence can lead to lasting emotional scars. Children may develop post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, anxiety disorders, and other mental health challenges that affect their ability to function in daily life. The psychological scars left by these experiences can hinder a child's ability to form healthy relationships and to heal from the emotional wounds inflicted by war. Patience and resilience are two of the most profound qualities that emerge in children enduring hardship, especially in the face of conflict. For a child in Gaza, waiting for a father to return home is not simply about passively sitting and hoping for the best. It becomes an act of remarkable strength, showing the resilience of the human spirit even in the most difficult circumstances. These qualities are ingrained in the child's ability to keep waiting, to believe, and to hold on to the possibility that tomorrow might bring something better. Patience in such circumstances is more than a virtue, it is a survival mechanism. In a conflict zone where the situation is often unpredictable, waiting for a loved one to come back becomes an exercise in enduring uncertainty. The child may wait by the door for hours, then days, not because they understand the full complexity of war, but because they believe, perhaps instinctively, that their father will return. This waiting, despite the emotional toll it takes, is a form of resilience. It is a reflection of the child's internal strength to withstand the emotional strain of living in a war zone, to continue believing in the possibility of reunion, even when the external world seems determined to prove them wrong. Resilience also manifests in the child's ability to cling to hope. Despite the growing absence of their father, despite the signs that the promise may not be kept, the child continues to hold on to the belief that they will see their father again. This resilience is not born of naivete, but of an inherent will to survive emotionally, to hold on to something positive in a world that constantly challenges their sense of stability. This patience and resilience are critical coping mechanisms for children in conflict zones. They help the child navigate through a world filled with loss, fear, and uncertainty, allowing them to keep going in the face of overwhelming adversity. In conflict zones like Gaza, the loss of family is a tragic and all too common experience. Families are often torn apart by violence, displacement, and death. For a child waiting for a parent to return, the absence of a loved one becomes an emotional wound that can never fully heal. The family unit, which should be a source of love, security, and support, is shattered, leaving the child to navigate an uncertain and unstable world. The absence of a father, especially when it follows a promise of return, symbolizes a deeper, more profound loss. It is not just the physical presence that is missing, but the emotional foundation that a parent provides. For a child, losing a parent, whether through death, disappearance, or separation, creates a vacuum of support and care that is often impossible to fill. This loss leaves the child vulnerable, not just in terms of physical safety, but also emotionally. The trauma of losing a family member can impact the child's sense of identity, trust, and security. Without their parents to provide guidance and reassurance, children are often left to face the harsh realities of life on their own, grappling with the loss of the one person they counted on for safety and love. The cycle of war in regions like Gaza perpetuates a never-ending cycle of trauma, loss, and instability for generations. Each conflict brings more destruction, forcing families to rebuild their lives from scratch, only to face the possibility of losing everything again. For children growing up in such environments, the cycle of violence becomes the only reality they know. The father's promise to return by sunset is a small flicker of normalcy amidst the chaos, but the constant disruptions of war make such promises fragile and uncertain. This cycle of violence not only damages the physical environment, but also inflicts deep psychological wounds on children. They grow up witnessing loss, displacement, and separation as part of their daily lives, which affects their ability to trust in the stability of the world. As the cycle continues, the emotional scars deepen and hope becomes harder to hold on to. The children who experience war in Gaza may carry the weight of these cycles for the rest of their lives. They become part of a generational trauma where the scars of the past conflict shape their views of the world, their relationships, and their future. The violence that surrounds them leaves a lasting imprint, influencing not just the present, but also the lives of those yet to be born. While the story of a child waiting for their father in Gaza is deeply rooted in the specific context of war, it speaks to a universal human experience. The longing for a loved one's return, the hope that promises will be kept, and the pain of waiting for someone who may never just come back are emotions felt by people across the world in various contexts, whether in times of war, separation, or loss. This universal struggle transcends borders and cultures. Every child, regardless of where they live, can relate to the sense of waiting for a parent or loved one to return home. Whether it is due to work, conflict, or other circumstances, the emotional experience of waiting for a loved one's return is a deeply human one. In a broader sense, the emotional journey of this child in Gaza reflects the larger human desire for safety, family, and stability in a world filled with unpredictability. It reminds us that, despite our differences, we all share the same fundamental hopes and fears and fundamental hopes. The story of the child's waiting is not just a specific tragedy for those in conflict zones, but a reflection of the universal human quest for love, connection, and the fulfillment of promises made. The story of a child waiting for their father amidst the turmoil of Gaza serves as a poignant reminder of the resilience, hope, and innocence that persist even in the harshest conditions. It speaks to the power of promises, the pain of loss, and the emotional scars left by conflict. As we reflect on this, let us remember that the human spirit's capacity to hope and endure transcends all boundaries. Thank you for your attention. May we carry forward the lessons of compassion, patience, and unity, and work toward a world where promises are kept and peace prevails. Good luck to all.